Good?
Good. Where's the hearth?
Can I have another pillow? I'm going to try 2 pillows.
Is this a fireside chat?
Yeah.
I thought there would be a hearth.
That's better. Okay. So many, many thousands of transactions per second.
Yes.
Presumably, I don't know, tell me how many users, thousands and thousands of users.
Sure, about 123 million users. We're in about 193 countries, and we're processing about $8 million in payments per day, about 5,300 payments per second.
Wow. And then, so that's sort of obviously the biggest application within PayPal. And then you support all the rest of the other areas of the business as well, incidentally. Yes. So tell us how you think about your infrastructure in terms of moving to speeding up delivering infrastructure as a service, basically, the direction you're heading.
Sure. I think, simply put, we're trying to drive as a service as far and as fast as we can. And I think we've figured out the right cadence to make it real and do it at scale. And so that plays first and foremost probably into our production side. So bringing all of that level of automation, and for us, I think it's you push down real hard on some of the levers of technology. So there's virtualization and there's automation. Where it really starts becoming powerful is when orchestration comes into play. And now we're really stitching together end-to-end workflows. That really starts becoming powerful, particularly for our product people. So as one example, we reduced a cycle time, basically, of how long it takes to move a product into our live site and distribute it globally for us from about a 2-month process down to about a week. And so about a 7x increase, and we're moving factors above that for our next iteration. So you get really, really powerful efficiencies just in terms of what you can do on the production side. And that's a lot about automated provisioning, scale up, scale down. I don't want to have to think about the demand. I just want the demand to be serviced. And so you'll see a lot of that on our production side. And then we're starting to really do some interesting things around how do you take orchestration and systems intelligence into that next level.
Okay, so staying at the infrastructure layer for a second. You guys have 3 different stacks. Talk us through how you think about, the sort of vision stack and the production stack. Tell us what those are.
Sure. I think, as you think about how, for us when we say make it real, we mean make it ready for prime time. And I was listening to some of the earlier folks talk about enterprise ready and what's required. And there are, there's some challenges and gaps that are out there just from a technology perspective in terms of operationalization. So there's the technology, and I think the technology are there. It's really about the journey. It's about how you can make that real in the arc. And so you're right, for us, what we realize is that you have to have that vision stack. It is literally, it's not a word, it's not a white paper, it is a stack. You can go play with it. It's what you want to be in 18 to 24 months.
And that's your OpenStack environment right now?
It's actually a hybrid environment. For us, we really feel it's about agility for us, and so we take the best of all of our partners and we then create really a hybrid stack out of that. So that vision stack represents a hybrid underneath, but it represents everything we want to do from a capability standpoint easily about 24 months out. And so we keep that as a line of sight, and then it's really about balancing between the risk averse and the risk tolerant. And so we stand up those stacks. So that in some sense, the risk averse stack is what you do today. That's the stack you're running today.
That's VMware, presumably?
Actually, that's both. It's also hybrid. So that's a hybrid stack for us as well. For us, it's about agility and choice. And because you'll find different capabilities and different levels of maturity, you really do want to bring the best of all your partners into play. You want to bring strong partners like VMware. You want to bring technologies that are emerging but at a really rapid pace like OpenStack and then bring them together. So we realize, you have to then also stand up what we might call the risk tolerant stack. Because again, you're ultimately trying to balance between the risk averse and the risk tolerant. If you literally, you already have one, that's how you run. If you don't have the other 2 stacks, what we realize is that you will either accelerate yourself to the vision before you're ever ready. And that's a killer for you. It's a killer for your credibility. You gain a lot of pushback when the answer is you delivered a capability, but it really wasn't ready for prime time. If you only stay with your sort of risk tolerant stack, I'm doing a little bit more of what that vision is, but I'm keeping it highly in tune with what I need to make it operational. You'll get there, but you'll probably get there about 18 months to 24 months after you really wanted to. So when you're talking about quality with velocity, which is really our mantra, agility for us equals quality with velocity. You have to have all 3 stacks running, and therefore you have a line of sight to vision, and you have a path about how you get there and make it really operational. operational ready.
And so from PayPal's perspective, when do you think the OpenStack environment will be ready for prime time?
It is. It's running. We're doing about 20% of our production traffic on OpenStack. We have a very large OpenStack footprint, and it is operationalized.
And so in terms of this sort of migration, is the plan always to have these 3 different stacks?
Yes.
From an efficiency standpoint, that seems not so efficient that you'd have to manage these.
You know what?
Not quite silos, but
sure. And in fact, they're not silos. They really are more of an integrated pipeline, if you will. You move from one to the other. The vision stack takes things that come from that sort of middle ground as well, because even the vision needs to be tuned and realigned, right? What was your vision today will get realigned, and so that has to be an iterative thing, so you have a good line of sight of what you're really trying to deliver in terms of capability to the business. It's a bit of an inefficiency only insofar as the time it takes you to create those maturations, and so you're right, you can spend less time in some of these stacks over time as you build up that capability and that readiness. But the concept of always having the 3 to keep you in tune, we found was really critical. And to be honest, there's a third one, which is it helps to have very passionate, talented people to drive that forward. It's certainly not just the technology. You'll encounter challenges. It's just the nature of the beast. You're going to skin your knees. It's how you move past that to that vision without serializing yourself again and then losing the market advantage that you really want.
Okay, so now talk to us about how, I know you guys are sort of morphing towards the DevOps model and bringing the infrastructure and the dev teams together.
Yeah.
How, well, first of all, from a technology standpoint, have you made a choice of what your PaaS layer is going to be?
Yeah, so again, I'll say it's always going to be about agility for us. So we have a concept of you make multiple bets, and you need to make multiple bets, because when it's about velocity with quality, then you need to invest and sort of say, well, who gets there first? And you don't want to make any overly prescriptive choices with that. We are using OpenShift on our PaaS layer. We are open to other things as we continue to do that. The Cloud Foundries, it's, again, the key for us is no lock-in, and our partners understand that. I think that's the beauty of the partnerships that we have, which is we're really going to partner and help move roadmaps forward together. It's one of the ways that we like to work is when we bring partners in, like an OpenShift or a Red Hat, we partner. We actually try and do shared roadmaps together and make it real for us. So the current implementation that we're doing is in OpenShift PaaS on top of OpenStack, and I think that's really where we're starting to see a lot of power. We have if we think about our clients, we have our developers, we have our engineers, and we have our actual clients to deliver great products to. We've gotten a lot of those efficiencies, and we've made a lot of those maturations on the production side for our engineers. Now we want to bring those same technologies to bear to really accelerate innovation for the developers. Coming from a previous media and entertainment company, a developer to me is a creative. They're creative content creators, and they just want to develop. And we have a concept that we call it the push-button developer stack. And the challenge, I think, with a lot of the pure IaaS plays is that they leave you at a VM. And they leave you just at a certain level. And for the developer, they want you to take them all the way. They want you to bring them all the way into a fully integrated, fully connected IDE, and they just want to develop. Our concept is you walk up to a portal, you pick the product that you want to work on. You're not asking VMs and RAM, and you just say, I want to work on Wallet. And then in minutes, we have you up and running in a fully connected container, and you're developing. And that's the key. And that's a real benefit to just the speed of innovation, and ultimately not having developers or testers or any of these folks do anything that's not part of what their role fundamentally is. We have an internal motto within our own team, and we call it enable and get out of the way. And I think a lot of times as technologists, we bring technology in play, and then it stays right in front of the person, and really that's not what they're looking for. If they're looking for it, we'll give it to them, and we'll give them that visibility. Outside of that, enable and get out of the way.
So, have you built anything in OpenShift yet?
Yes.
What is that?
So it's exactly what I described to you. So it is that push-button developer stack. We're moving through our final pilots for that and to move that out into the development community. It's exactly what I described. You're going to walk up to a portal, you're going to tell me what product you want to work on, and in minutes you're going to sit into a fully connected IDE.
Okay, so it's an internal app for the developers too.
And for partners, and for our partners as well. So anybody who wants to do development on PayPal, the idea is we want to take anything that is not part of development out of the way. We know how to do infrastructure, but infrastructure leaves you at that certain level. And and we've seen some capabilities that broach that a little bit. Maybe you'll get a VM with a Java wrapper or C+ interrupt or something, but that's still only halfway for what the developer wants.
Mm-hmm. So how's sort of mobile PayPal happening, affecting your infrastructure in terms of driving the as a service model?
Sure.
And do you guys have a sort of Square?
We do.
Yet,
we do.
Yeah.
It's called PayPal here, and really, if we were to say, well, how does out as a service help those folks? It just helps the speed of innovation fundamentally. And there's certainly an obvious one around time to market and just how fast you can move a product forward and make it live and get it out to your clients. But again, if you think about the development process, you don't want them to context shift. You want them to be able to stay focused. And so just the level of innovation has really increased in a really rapid way. And the output of that for our clients certainly is some of the things that you're starting to see now. So PayPal here, which is, as you said, our version of Square, which is a great mobile experience to be able to take payments anywhere you want. We think it's a superior experience. And also moving offline, now PayPal we're not just the ubiquitous, payment button that you see on any site. We're moving offline into Home Depot and things like that. And so that creates a different dynamic, but fundamentally, the nature of the architecture doesn't change that much because, again, we architect for agility. We architect to have those kind of capabilities.
So you have a bunch of developers who are thinking about these different stacks that you have. Some that are used to developing with, with PayPal's, with VMware as their underlying infrastructure. Some that are now thinking about OpenStack. How do you manage that internally? Like, who gets to play on the OpenStack, environment? Who is still in the VMware world, and how does that sort of morph culturally for you?
Sure. I think in the simple answer is we abstract that. The developer doesn't need to know that. The only people who really care about that are really underneath the systems engineers and the administrators who need to manage that. It's completely abstracted. We have no boundaries that say this type of developer, this type of product needs to be here versus here, because we've made that hybrid model to the point where it's robust enough and integrated enough and consistent enough that it doesn't matter anymore.
But OpenShift doesn't run on VMware, right? So
it doesn't, but you get both of the capabilities on top of each. So you can bring both of those capabilities to bear. You can actually leverage both of them from an API perspective. Still talk to your compute underneath, and you hit it. The key for us is it's less about which partner we use, and it's about that programmatic access. We want programmatic access to everything. Now things really start becoming powerful to us, and when we leverage that also with bringing in systems intelligence and sort of the real-time feedback loop, now we really start seeing some tremendous efficiencies around productivity.
Do you foresee having, within your whole operation between IT ops and the dev team, do you foresee that number of people, growing or shrinking over time as you sort of develop more automation?
Sure. I think we'll see a shrinkage in an area and a freeing up of labor in another area, right? I think the transition that's happened even as we moved into virtualization, right? The number of SAs that you have in some fashion peaks and then starts to diminish. And as you bring the automation to play, and especially the orchestration into play, it is certainly less people spending time on certain things. I don't know so much about do the number of staff reduce, but the staff get freed up and redirected to do more high-value work for the business. That's always the promise, and we're really seeing that, particularly on the production side. Again, we just don't have people walking through the 7 steps to provision, as an example, or the steps you need to add capacity that we used to do. It's automated.
So what are some of the risks that you need to be aware of? Maybe some learnings that you guys have seen as you start to abstract away and automate more and more of the infrastructure? What are some learnings and potential risks there as you do that?
Yeah, I think the biggest gap that we found as we continue to move forward was really just there's not a lot of focus on the open source side around operationalization. You certainly find that with great partners like VMware who are very enterprise robust, but you're not finding as much on the open source, OpenStack area. There's just more focus on capability, feature function, and less focus on high availability, monitoring, and so forth. I think you heard some of the other folks this morning talking about that. That is both the challenge and the opportunity. And so for us, that meant you're going to partner, you're going to be reaching out and really engaging the community, and in many cases, we're going to be doing our own development. We are, to bring some of those capabilities forward. And some of them are things that existed, but we just began to capitalize on, and some of them really didn't exist. Our as-a-service footprint includes sort of obvious things maybe around load balancer as a service, DNS as a service, now moving into firewall as a service. And really the key is, how do you begin to bring these things together to create a truly robust operationalization? And I think the two areas that we found is you have to identify those gaps, and this is why we needed those 3 tracks. We needed to know what we wanted to be. We clearly knew what we were. We had to find that arc, and given that there's not a lot of products out there on the open source side that are focusing on that, we figured out that hybrid model about how to bring those capabilities to bear in a really robust way.
And do you foresee always having all of this infrastructure internally, or could there be some, say, test and dev, for example, that you know, within the OpenStack environment potentially, the VMware environment potentially, that happens outside of your own infrastructure? What's the sort of
Absolutely. So we don't say why, we say why not, and we architect for that. And so when I came on board, that was certainly one of the things that I found already in flight, and we were able to help accelerate, which is no lock-in. So it's not about a technical capability, it's about a business choice. So we are working with different partners to make sure that all of the capability that we're bringing to bear is not bound by it has to be in our data center or it has to be our kit or our gear. It can be anybody's, and then it's just the circumspection of the business rules and the business policies, and we're a payments company, so first and foremost it's always about security and trust and how we do that, and it's about reliability and simplicity, and we don't see any barriers from our ability to be able to have burst capability or have those types of activities, dev, op activities happen anywhere.
So do any public cloud services satisfy those requirements for you yet?
Not entirely. I think the challenge is for particular types of flows. Let's talk about the developer, for example. If you need no connectivity to any of our back-end services, it's a much easier play. As you need connectivity into the back-end services, and now you're dealing with that infrastructure that you don't necessarily want to move forward into the cloud, or you want to have it in a more of a hybrid way, that's where the circumspection comes in, but we are finding partners who are doing that. Certainly, you're seeing Amazon made a great move not too long ago, bringing VPC capability in.